So, is there a deal or no deal? Well, the American president says there is no rush for that. In fact, just a short while ago, he put out a long tooth post where he says that once the war with Iran concludes, he wants more nations to recognize Israel and formally join the Abraham Accords. How will the Gulf countries react? Also coming up, internal wrangles are brewing for the AIADMK as 3 legislators of the party tendered their resignations. More coming up shortly. First, we begin with the United States. The top story at this hour is on the US-Iran negotiations and what it will take for both countries to reach a deal. As the question lingers, President Trump threw in a fresh caveat just a couple of hours ago. A short while back, Trump shared a lengthy post on Truth Social. It said many things, but the one aspect which catches the eye is a new condition. Trump says that once the war with Iran concludes, he wants more nations to recognize Israel and formally join the Abraham Accords. This follows a telephonic exchange between Trump and the top leadership from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, and Bahrain. The call took place on Saturday. The remarks come at a time when negotiators are moving back and forth to keep discussions ongoing and move the needle on delicate peace talks. A high-level Iranian delegation that includes the country's top negotiator and central bank chief are in Qatar's capital to discuss an agreement with the US and the release of frozen funds. The delegation includes Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher and a foreign minister Abbas Araghchi. Now, amid these developments, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Bagheri says Tehran and Washington had reached conclusions on several issues under discussion. But he cautioned that a final agreement was still far from imminent. On the issue of tolls for passing through the Strait of Hormuz, Tehran says it is collecting fees for navigational services from ships transiting the strategic waterway, rather than imposing tolls.
Naturally, in the course of this process, certain services are provided, such as navigational services and the necessary measures to protect the environment of the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, and the Sea of Oman. These involve costs that must be collected. They should not be described as tolls or duties.
The potential memorandum of understanding discussed between the United States and Iran contains 14 points. It is focused on ending the war and the U.S. naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for Iran taking steps to ensure safe transit through the strategic waterway. But Trump's latest announcement puts the ball back in not just Iran's court, but in every other country which he has specifically named in his push for Abraham Accords. And joining us live now on this broadcast is retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis. He's a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. He's now joining us live from Sterling, Virginia, the United States. It's good to see you, Colonel Davis. Let me just begin by asking you, we've seen the posts by President Donald Trump. We've seen the back and forth between Iran and the United States. In your own assessment, what do you think will happen going forward or in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, President Trump is always talking like a deal is just beyond the next turn. I mean, on Saturday, it was, it's right there. Everything is largely already been agreed to, and very soon I'll have the details. And of course, no details were ever provided because we are not close to anything. And it was very clear from the beginning that's the case. And President Trump continues to say that to give hope and optimism, I don't know, to the markets or to his supporters, it's not clear. But you always see that the Iranian side is not on board with that. So for any kind of a negotiated settlement to work, both sides have to be saying the same thing. Even if it's close, they have to be saying the same thing. And so far, some things have been similar. As you saw, the foreign ministry spoken for Iran has just said that there are some things in an agreement, but the big things like the control of the Strait of Hormuz, money, unfrozen assets, the nuclear material, those things are huge and still have not even been addressed, much less solved. So when President Trump this morning drops that, interesting Abraham Accords bomb. That threw a whole new wrinkle into this. And listen, I mean, you can just take Saudi Arabia by itself. They have been absolutely adamant that they are not going to sign the Abraham Accords until the Palestinian people in Gaza and in the West Bank have a country of their own and freedoms. And they say they will not budge on that. So just because President Trump puts out this Truth Social, they're certainly not going to change their minds that they've been trying to get since Trump was in office in the first term. So that just seems to add more complications, because I just don't see any prospect that that happens in the near term unless there's a change in Gaza.
Talking about the prospects, there have been indications that the United States and Iran want to extend the ceasefire for 60 days. Have you heard that? And what's your reaction to that?
Look, as far as somebody who actually wants this war to be over, I'm all for that. That's great, because that gives you space to actually have negotiations without being under the gun. The problem is that there are huge headwinds, both within Trump's inner circle in the White House, and certainly his allies on Capitol Hill, and Israel. Sorry, they are adamantly opposed to this. They don't want a ceasefire. They don't want a truce. They don't want a negotiated deal. They just want the Iranian side destroyed. And they've been saying that on social media, on television interviews, and just emphatically begging the president, don't have a deal. Go back and finish the job, they keep saying over and over. But militarily, that's not going to happen. We don't have the means to militarily finish the job, or we would have done it the first time, and we would not have agreed to a ceasefire. So that's not a viable path. But for some reason, the president can't come to just saying, well, I'll recognize that I'll just get the best deal we can, because that means he's going to have to give something to get something. And that's just not the way President Trump likes to operate. He likes to issue demands and get everything, and something's going to have to give, because that's not going to work here.
All right. Colonel Davis, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your insights and for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Let's move on now. Sunday was a day of protests, rallies, and chaos in Turkey. Some political, others led solely by citizens. In Ankara, opposition CHP took to the streets after police raised their headquarters. Turkish police fired tear gas and forced their way into the CHP office after a court order last week removed party leader Özgür Özil and several of his deputies from their positions. Protesters gathered outside the party offices condemning the move and accusing authorities of targeting the opposition. Police used tear gas and rubber bullets as they moved into the building where supporters and party officials had barricaded themselves inside. Supporters had blocked entrances with buses and furniture in an attempt to prevent police from entering. The clashes left doors, windows, and furniture damaged across the ground floor of the building. Ousted CHP leader Özil has reacted to those developments. Özil had been elected as CHP chairperson in November 2023. However, a recent court ruling ordered his removal and reinstated former party leader Kemal, who led the CHP for 13 years but failed to secure a national electoral victory during his tenure. Opposition leaders have strongly criticized the court decision, calling it politically motivated and part of a wider pressure campaign against opposition politicians and elected officials. Özil had overseen a major success for the opposition in Turkey's 2024 municipal elections, where the CHP dealt a significant setback to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's ruling Justice and Development Party. The CHP, founded in 1923 by modern Turkey's founder Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, remains the country's oldest political party. It was dissolved following the 1980 military coup before being re-established in 1992. Not too far away, in Istanbul, hundreds came to the streets to protest against the shutting down of the Bilgi University, which many say has a liberal slant. Students and other protesters clashed with the police after the university was shut following a sudden order from President Erdogan. The uproar is primarily against a shutdown in the middle of the year.
There are students who have given 4 years of their lives to this school and will be graduating in 2 weeks, and all of them can be dismissed in an instant by a decision that comes out of one person's mouth overnight. This is exactly the state this country has been brought to. Shame on this.
The decree to shut down Bill G University has been shrouded and shouldered on a law which allows a private institution's closure if the expected level of education and training is insufficient. While there is no clarity on the reason behind the sudden shutdown, the parent company which owns the institution was in the middle of a money laundering and tax fraud sweep last year. The Supreme Court of India declined to hear urgent pleas linked to the viral cockroach Janta Party movement. Chief Justice of India, Surya Kant, asked the advocates not to take the issue sentimentally after they urged for an urgent hearing of his petition. The Chief Justice told the petitioners not to take it so sentimentally. Bench led by CJI Surya Kant, along with Justices Joy Malia Bagchi and V.M. Pancholi, said there is no such grave urgency in the matter and the petitions would be examined in due course. The comments came after advocates mentioned two PILs before the court. One of the pleas sought action against alleged commercial use of courtroom observations, and another sought a CBI probe into the activities associated with the satirical cockroach Janta Party campaign. The controversy erupted after oral remarks of the CJI during a hearing concerning alleged fake law degrees and senior advocate designations. During the exchange, the CJI criticized what he described as a culture of institutional attacks and referred to, quote, parasites of society. The Chief Justice of India also remarked that some unemployed youth become like cockroaches, attacking institutions through media, social media activism, and RTI campaigns. The CJI later clarified that his comments were being misquoted. Justice Surya Kant said, and I quote, "I am pained to read how a section of the media has misquoted my oral observations made during the hearing of a frivolous case. The Cockroach Janta Party gained more than 20 million online followers since being set up. Its website, cockroachjantaparty.org, is reportedly inaccessible for many users. However, a lot of proxy sites have appeared on the net. Party's X page at CJP-_2029 with over 200,000 followers is also inaccessible. CJP's founder, Abhijit Dipke, alleged that party's Instagram handle was earlier hacked. Internal troubles continue for the AIADMK, the third largest party in the Tamil Nadu Assembly. Exactly 3 weeks after the Tamil Nadu polls results, 3 legislators of the AIADMK party tendered their resignations. Just hours ago, the MLAs met the Assembly Speaker and tendered their resignation. They are Maragatam Kumaravel, MLA from Madurantakam, Sambiamba, MLA from Darapuram, and Jaya Kumar, MLA from Perundurai, have jumped ship. Shortly after tendering their resignation, the trio met Tamil Nadu's Sports Minister. Adhav is a close aide of TVK Chief and Chief Minister Vijay. During the meeting, the trio formally joined the TVK, Tamil Nadu's ruling party. With this, the strength of AIADMK legislators has gone down from 47 to 44, all in about 21 days after the polls results. The AIADMK had already been torn apart by internal differences during the assembly floor test. The party chief's stance was that all 47 legislators vote against Chief Minister Vijay's TVK. However, only 22 legislators, including party chief, did so. A rebel group of 25 AIADMK MLAs voted in support of Vijay's party. This helped the newly formed government win the floor test with a comfortable majority. In a statement, AIADMK chief lashed out at the TVK, accusing the ruling party of indulging in horse trading and unethical practices. Tamil Nadu's principal opposition party, DMK, has also hit out at Vijay's party. DMK chief and former chief minister Stalin also made allegations of horse trading and unfair practices. Even Vijay's ally VCK has questioned the latest move, calling it unethical. The VCK said that this act is a threat to Vijay's claim of indulging in genuine and honest politics. Let's talk to our principal correspondent, Siddharth MP, who's now joining us live on this broadcast. Siddharth MP, it's good to see you. Probably you can tell us the politics surrounding AIADMK and TVK and what's the way forward?
Clearly, this is an attempt by the TVK to increase their numbers in the legislature. Let's remember that TVK is the single largest party, but it does not have a majority on its own. The TVK government is at the mercy of several small parties who have only offered outside support. About a dozen plus MLAs, legislators from myriad parties are supporting the TVK, and that's how they've been able to form the government. It's only Congress that's in a formal alliance with the TVK, whereas all other parties continue to be outside supporters. Of course, some of these parties like the VCK and the Muslim League have been offered ministerial berths, but it so continues that all these parties are offering outside support. So the TVK requires for its long-term survival more MLAs on their own, and that means they would have to have more numbers in the house, and for that one of the routes is to have MLAs from parties like the ADMK who would tender resignations and then join the TVK and then contest the elections. So as it stands, there's already one seat, Trichy East, which was vacated by Chief Minister Vijay. So that seat goes for the polls. So in addition to that, 3 more polls would have to be conducted. That is the 3 seats vacated by the ADMK MLAs. So by this method, the TVK could perhaps look to increase their seat tally using their existing support. And the more seats they get, the more stability for their government. And as for the AIADMK, it's always been a divided house over the last several years. And now those kind of divisions are coming out in the open even more. Already the legislative party of the ADMK is split between 2 factions. And now within those 2 factions, we're seeing 3 of them tendering their resignations. As they say in politics, power is the glue that holds people together. But right now that glue of power has not been there for 5 years. And for ADMK, for the foreseeable future as well, the glue of power is not there to hold that party together. So in the absence of power, it's natural that the party is breaking apart. They don't have a charismatic leader like earlier. So obviously things not going well for the 3rd largest party in Tamil Nadu, and a party that's been there in the state for 55 years and ruled for at least 30 of those 55 years. So certainly it looks like the ADMK is breaking apart, and it's on full display, Eric.
All right, that is our principal correspondent, Siddharth MP, live in Chennai. Siddharth, thank you very much for the update. Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado says she plans to run for president once again and return to Venezuela before the end of 2026. Machado's announcement followed a massive rally in Panama. Take a look. Let's move to Africa now. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has officially secured his spot to run for a 2nd and final presidential term in January next year. This comes after a dominant performance in the ruling party's primaries. Representing the All Progressives Congress, Tinubu faced a surprise challenge from a little-known candidate, Stanley Osifo. However, he ultimately crushed the opponent with nearly 11 million votes to Osifo's 16,500. Tinubu's time in office has been marked by tough economic shifts like cutting fuel and electricity subsidies, as well as overhauling the tax system. However, these bold moves have won him strong support from international investors looking for stability.
Nigerians still struggle with rising costs and economic adjustment. We do not dismiss these concerns, We understand and govern not in comfort, but in reality, with honesty and action.
His path to re-election looks even clearer now that a plan by rival parties to unite behind a single challenger has fallen apart. Tinubu heads into this next race maintaining that his 2023 win was entirely legitimate despite being clouded by accusations of rigging from his opponents. And for the latest on that, our correspondent from Lagos, Louisa Olaniyi, reports.
President Tinubu has officially secured the APC presidential ticket for 2027 general elections. Party heavyweights gathered in Abuja on Sunday in a strong show of support, signaling a unified front as the ruling party rallies behind its leader for a second term. However, the road to re-election may not be that smooth. Many Nigerians are still grappling with rising living costs, inflation, and economic hardship issues that have fueled public discontent and strengthened opposition voices in recent times. As the political landscape shifts, the big question remains if President Tinubu can turn the tide on these challenges and convince voters that his administration deserves another 4 years. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olaniyi, WION The World is One.
Well, ahead of Eid al-Adha, rising inflation and fuel prices are making sacrificial animals increasingly unaffordable for families across Pakistan and Yemen. In Karachi's cattle markets, buyers spent hours searching for cows and goats within their budgets as livestock prices surged sharply compared to last year.
I have been here since 10 a.m. and I'm still roaming around the market. It is 4 p.m. now. It is almost 3:30 or 4 o'clock. I have not found any animal yet. The prices of animals are high. The prices of animals have increased up to 100%.
Pakistan's inflation rate rose to 7.3% in March, while petrol and diesel prices crossed 403 rupees per litre. Traders say higher transport costs have directly pushed up cattle prices. Freight charges for moving animals has risen from nearly 60,000 rupees last year to over 100,000 rupees in some cases.
Our government has increased the price of petrol and diesel by a lot. So for this reason, the transporters earlier in 2024, they used to ask us for 60 to 65,000 rupees or $215 to 233. Now they ask us for 90 to 105 or 110,000. That is why we charge more money.
The price shock is forcing many families to either reduce spending or stretch their finances to fulfill the religious tradition of sacrifice during Eid. Similar concerns are emerging in Yemen, where customers at livestock markets in Sana'a reported sheep, goats and cattle becoming significantly more expensive ahead of the festival. Market organizers say supply has improved compared to last year, but weak purchasing power continues to weigh heavily on consumers already struggling with economic hardship.
Prices have risen in an unreasonable way. I think officials should make things easier given that we are approaching Eid. This means that people are struggling and their purchasing power is very weak. Last year, I bought a goat for around 90,000 Yemeni riyals, which is approximately 170, and today I am buying it for 130,000 to 140,000 riyals.
The rise in livestock prices reflects the broader economic impact of higher global energy costs and supply chain disruptions linked to Iran. Pakistan relies heavily on oil imports from Saudi Arabia and the UAE through the Strait of Hormuz, making fuel prices highly sensitive to regional tensions. In Yemen, buyers say livestock prices have risen by nearly 30 to 40%, with some families now considering pooling resources together to buy animals collectively. As millions prepare to celebrate, the economic strain is reshaping spending patterns and highlighting how global geopolitical shocks are feeding directly into household budgets across the world. And that's the latest on this edition of Race to Power. Thank you for watching. Do stay with us. This is WION The World is One.